Hello, and welcome to the first session of the course on mobile attribution and marketing analytics. In this session, we'll be covering AppsFlyer basics. Now, the point of this session, or the goals for this session, to understand the terms, definitions, and icons that will be used throughout the course. We'll also gain an understanding of the different players in the mobile marketing ecosystem. I'd like to take the time to make sure we are all using the same terms throughout the entire course to make sure we understand clearly and build a foundation that we can use to build off of throughout the course. So the first term or definition that we're going to cover is what we call the app owner or advertiser. Now, this is the person or the business that owns the app, or in some cases might be a company or agency that manages all the UA initiatives for an app. Throughout this course, we'll use a demo candy shop e-commerce app to represent the advertiser. And what I've done is actually set it up so that I'm mirroring my device onto the screen. And we'll use this so that you can not only understand and see me lecturing, but also see in real time what the apps look like. So what I'll do is just bring the app onto the screen. And you can see here that on my screen, I actually have the Candy Shop app. If I launch it, you'll notice it's a very simple app. And the Demo Candy Shop app is made to just represent a fake e-commerce app where you have three options. You can either buy M&Ms, buy Skittles, or register. So if we click buy M&Ms, you'll see it takes you to a page where you can actually purchase some M&Ms. You can also register by entering your email address. And later on, we'll actually see what this looks like within the AppsFlyer dashboard. Next, we have the ad network. Sometimes we also call this a partner or integrated partner. Ad networks or partners are who sell installs to app owners or advertisers and agencies. Ad networks typically charge on a cost per install, also known as CPI, a CPM, cost per impression, or sometimes on a cost per action basis. Common examples of ad networks are Facebook, Google, and InMobi. If an ad network is an AppsFlyer partner, they'll be listed in the integrated section of the AppsFlyer dashboard. This also means that that partner will have their own login to the AppsFlyer dashboard where they can see the installs that they are creating for an advertiser or app owner. In some instances or some circumstances, partners or integrated partners in ad networks will also have what we call an advertiser login, where they can log into a dashboard and run user acquisition campaigns for an app owner or advertiser. Next, we have the publisher. Ad networks need to receive inventory from publishers. Publishers supply inventory to ad networks, and a publisher may share inventory with several different ad networks. Some ad networks will share what's called site IDs with advertisers and AppsFlyer, and these site IDs typically represent a specific publisher on an ad network. Throughout this course, we'll actually be using two example publishers. The first example publisher will be the World News app. And the second will be called the Useless Game app. These publishers are made to illustrate or show how publishers can drive installs for a specific app owner. So again, let's look at my device and see these apps in action. You'll notice on my desktop, I have the Useless Game and World News. First, we'll look at the Useless Game. When you launch the Useless Game, you have one option, and that's just to play the game. When you play the game, it serves you an ad. If you close it and play the game again, you'll see it serves you another ad. So it's a pretty useless game, but the example is to illustrate what happens when ad networks use publishers to display advertisements. Next, we have the World News Publisher app, and if we click this one, we'll see that it's just an example fake news app that has some stories, and in between each of the stories, it also shows an advertisement to drive the install for an app. So for example, if we click Buy Skittles in an app, this will take us to the Google Play Store where we can actually install the application. And in this example, when I just clicked it, you'll notice that I already have the app installed, but that's okay. Next, we have the Software Development Kit. In order for an app owner or advertiser to leverage an attribution platform, such as AppsFlyer, they'll need to install the attribution provider, or in this case, AppsFlyer's Software Development Kit, into their app or software. Now, the developer app owner is always responsible for implementing the AppsFlyer SDK. And AppsFlyer never touches an advertiser or app owner's code. You don't have to worry about too technical of the details here. Basically, you can think of a software development kit, or SDK, as code that a developer puts inside of their app or their code to access more capabilities. Next, we have the term in-app event. Conceptually, I like to tell people to think of in-app events like storage boxes. In these storage boxes, you can name them whatever you want. And in this example, we have the purchase storage box. And you can create as many compartments as you'd like to store as many different values as you would like. In this very example that we're looking at right now, you can see that it is a purchase storage box or purchase in-app event. And in this case, the item is M&Ms, the revenue is $5, and the quantity is 1. And that's because we've bought 1 bag of M&Ms for $5. Postbacks. Postbacks are the way in which integrated partners receive information from AppsFlyer when a user has installed an app or triggered an in-app event. Ad networks use these postbacks so that they know when to charge advertisers for an install or a specific action if they're running CPA or cost per action campaigns. They'll also know via these postbacks when to pay their publisher. If a publisher has brought a user to an advertiser, then the ad network needs to pay the publisher for that install. And ad networks will also use postbacks to optimize the campaigns for the app owner. If it's not completely clear right now, don't worry, we'll get in deeper details throughout this course. Some other terms that I want you to understand. The first one is engagements. Engagements can either be a click or an impression. And no SDK or software development kit is required to track an engagement. Ad networks or partners serve ads via the inventory supplied by publishers. When an ad network tracks an impression, they will tell AppsFlyer each time an ad has been served. When a user clicks an ad in a publisher's app, the ad network will tell AppsFlyer a click has been made. The most important thing to remember is that engagements can either be clicks or impressions. Next, we have events. AppsFlyer records all events. The install event is actually equal to the first launch of the app. And this is because the AppsFlyer SDK needs to be activated in order to record an install. The uninstall event happens when a device no longer responds to a silent push. Now don't worry, when we're tracking uninstalls, users are not seeing a pop-up notification on their device. It's called a silent push because it's happening behind the scenes. And in-app events, as we mentioned, must be set up by app owners inside of the apps using the AppsFlyer Software Development Kit or SDK. So AppsFlyer records all these events. We record the install event, in-app events, and any in-app event that the app owner or advertiser decides to set up, we can record. And we also record the uninstall event. AppsFlyer records 2 kinds of installs. The first one is called a non-organic install. And a non-organic install happens when AppsFlyer can directly attribute an engagement to an install. Organic installs, on the other hand, happen if AppsFlyer cannot directly attribute an engagement. Remember, an engagement is either a click or an impression to an install. And installs are only tracked upon the first launch of the app. Now, if this sounds a little unclear, again, don't worry. We're just covering the basic definitions, and we'll go into this in plenty of detail throughout the course. Next, we have media sources. Now, a non-organic install means that we can attribute an install to a specific engagement. Now, engagements must come from media sources. In AppsFlyer, there's two kinds of media sources. There's the ad network, partners, or as we sometimes call them, integrated partners, and custom media sources. Now, when an engagement is recorded, it'll come from a specific media source. The media source is defined by what's called a partner ID or PID parameter on the AppsFlyer tracking link. If an engagement comes from a partner, the media source name will be defined by AppsFlyer. When an engagement comes from a source other than a partner, it is considered a custom media source and is defined by the AppsFlyer user or app owner. Now again, if an install is from a non-organic source, that means it must have an associated media source. And that media source can either be an ad network or a custom media source. Next, we have the AppsFlyer ID. You can think of these as the very unique identifier every time an app is installed on a device. That means that if I install an app with the AppsFlyer SDK and launch it, it'll receive an AppsFlyer ID. If I uninstall that app, then reinstall it and launch it again, I will receive a new AppsFlyer ID. AppsFlyer IDs are completely unique to every single device and every single time an app is installed. And this unique AppsFlyer ID is what AppsFlyer uses to track what's called the lifetime value of each install. So that's it for our AppsFlyer basics. Next up, we're going to cover the value proposition of AppsFlyer and what AppsFlyer does. Thank you, and stay tuned.